Hey, my friend Mark here. I'm smiling and I want to start this video with a light tone because I'm going to say some pretty intense things in this video, and it's only out of a heart to really bring benefit to your life. So I think the number one reason that people are unhappy in marriage is because they are blaming their spouse for their lack of happiness. Or you're in a marriage where your spouse is blaming you for their lack of happiness. From the beginning of time, we as humans, we are always looking for someone to blame for any kind of frustrations we have. If I'm not happy as a person, we look outside of us to either blame someone close to us, or another common thing is to blame our job for our lack of happiness. So this cycle can happen in marriages all the time. A cycle where one spouse has lost their sense of purpose, their life lacks fulfillment and joy, and they blame their spouse for it. And so then that spouse will continue to pull on the other spouse to do more for them. Why aren't you here for me? Why were you gone so long? Why do you always go out and go do that? Why are you in the garage doing that instead of spending time with me? Why are you going out with your girlfriends instead of being home hanging out with me? And it can become a cycle where there's this ugly tug of war happening and no one's happy. There's one primary way that marriages get stuck in this dynamic, and it's simply this. If one spouse at some point in the past did something wrong, they were viewing something on their phone, they had an emotional affair, something happened in their past, what some couples do is one spouse will hold it over the head of the other spouse for years, even their entire relationship. Here's how that would look. Let's say that me as a man, I've lost my sense of purpose. I've lost my sense of value in this world. Let's say that my wife had some kind of emotional affair in the past. I can choose to look at her and basically remind her of what she did back in the past, and then expect her to do something today to make up for that. And I could choose to see her like that every single day. My wife, because of what she did, she might feel very guilty if that had happened. And because of that, even though it happened 5 years ago, she might feel guilty every day and feel like she needs to do something to make up for that. And so we both play this silly game where I get to hold over her head something she did in her past. And she might also feel that, yeah, I did that thing. I hate that I did that thing. I need to make up for it. This is going to cause both people to be miserable in their attempt to be happy. So here's why this conversation matters so much. As a human being, it really matters that we are happy and fulfilled. What if we are doing something in our life that's going to prevent us from ever being happy and fulfilled? You see, if I have a problem being happy as a person, if I blame my spouse, I am missing the pathway to happiness. It doesn't matter how hard I try to get them to do something different from me. It's not going to work because the problem is not what they're doing for me. The problem is within me. And the reality is, if I'm like this as a person, no matter who I married, this same dynamic would have happened. Because spouses don't make us happy, but they can add to our happiness. Sure, they can take away from our happiness, but ultimately, to be a happy human, to be happily married, this formula for happiness, I've got to get there myself. I can't saddle my spouse with the responsibility of turning me into a happy human being. It doesn't matter how many hoops I get them to jump through. I will never be happy if I'm asking them to make me happy. And by the way, I'm going to make them miserable. My desire to be happy, which is a good desire, I can try to solve my happiness through this person, and I'm asking them to do something they cannot do. And all that's going to happen is we both end up miserable. So if this is you, if you find yourself being this person that you're just not happy, you're not fulfilled, and honestly, you find yourself blaming your spouse for it, what do? I want you to learn from a man named Toulouse. Toulouse is an inmate in a prison, and I met him over the last few months. And one day in the prison, a group of us guys were asking this question: who do you know that's living the life they want to be living? Who do you know that is actually happy with their life? And most people answered, well, no one really. Matter of fact, I ask that question everywhere I go. And people of all stages in life, all kinds of levels of status, most people say, I don't really know anyone who's happy with the life they're living. Toulouse stood up, an inmate in prison, and when he stood up, he spoke like a king of great authority, but he also spoke with the seriousness of a man on his deathbed. I will never forget it. He looked around the room at the other guys in the room. He looked at me and he simply said this: you will never live the life you were made for until you face yourself. And he talked about the number of times he's been in and out of prison since he was 15 years old. And he talked about how he finally faced himself. It wasn't this person. It wasn't that person. The answer wasn't over there. The answer wasn't over here. He said, I had to face myself. And I agree with him. Facing oneself is the most difficult thing for any human being to do. We're all terrified. We're all terrified to think that there's something about me that needs to be different. We're terrified that the way I'm living life is causing someone else harm. Nobody wants to be the problem. But what if all of us are the problem? But what if the solution is right in front of us? What if the solution is right within us? I wrote a book about my journey called One Step to Freedom. And it's my story about how I finally faced myself. Because as a person, I always wanted to blame other people for the lack of what I was. The lack of what I wanted from life, I always looked outside of me, but I was never willing to face what was inside of me. Look at it like this. You have this cup. This is your happiness cup, your fulfillment cup. Other people can add to that cup. Other people, like your spouse, they want to add to that cup. But you know what they can't do? They can't make the cup. The cup is this thing inside of you. And human beings don't make it. You know what else they can't do? Human beings can't fill the little holes that you have in the bottom of your cup, which represent the way you think about life, the way you think about yourself. If you have holes in the bottom of your cup, it doesn't matter how much someone pours into that happiness cup, there's never enough. And you'll be frustrated and empty. Everything people do for you, it's never enough. And it's so futile. And it's so exhausting for the people that want to pour into your cup. They want to love you. They want to serve you. They want to help you be happy. But the more they do, it never goes anywhere because there's holes in the bottom of your cup. Listen, friends, I think we all do this. I think we're all guilty of this as humans. I used to always think about other people that no one likes me. From a little boy, even as a 40, 45-year-old adult, surrounded by great people, I used to think people didn't like me. The reality was, I had holes in the bottom of my cup. I had to be willing to do some work on me. I had to be willing to open up as a person. And instead of looking around and pointing a finger at people, I had to look in the mirror and ask myself some questions. I'll leave you with this final thought. A lack of happiness, a lack of fulfillment is a really big deal. I don't want anyone to live without a lack of these things. I recommend that you start by reminding yourself of your purpose. Who were you made to be in this world? Because I believe that you were made to be a fulfilled and happy person. And I think you can have it. But as long as you're blaming your spouse or blaming your parents, you'll be creating a bigger hole in the bottom of your cup. It's not the answer. You can have a happy life. You can have a happy marriage. You can have a fulfilled marriage. But what I find in our work with couples is they think they have a marriage problem. And actually, the problem is one or both people have holes in the bottom of their cup that really have nothing to do with their marriage. But if those holes get filled, two people can begin to exist in a happy and fulfilled way together. I hope this has been helpful to you. If we haven't yet met, my name is Mark Delaney. My wife and I, our mission in life is to help people know their purpose and live in freedom and walk in love with other people. If this is helpful to you, subscribe to this channel. I want to continue to create more content to help you live your best, bold life.